Hello, my loves, and welcome to the 78 Deep Challenge Prep Week video. I'm so excited, and I know that you are too. I want to preface this by saying this is going to be, of course, public on YouTube. If you're finding this sometime after our challenge has started, whether you find this a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, I invite you to join in wherever you are. Join in and just dive in head first because this is going to be a wild ride, a beautiful voyage with the tarot that is timeless, regardless of when I'm actually actively doing the challenge. And if we like this, if we have fun, if it's not too too draining on me in the end when all is said and done, maybe we'll do it again in the future. But that is way off in the distance. Let's talk about prep week. So 78 Deep is a tarot challenge that I created that is designed to be a voyage into the depths of you. So, really, a personal discovery, a spiritual development type of challenge that uses the tarot as our tool for exploration, as our guide along the journey, as the gateway into our internal experience that we're desiring to have. If you are brand new and you've never seen any of the other videos, particularly the announcement for this challenge, I will leave that video linked below or above. You'll definitely want to tune into that because there's a lot more details about how this came about, how it's going to work, etc., etc. But this is just our official video of Prep Week to help us get our shit together. As we're diving into today's prep week, I'm going to be sharing a lot of housekeeping things, logistic stuff like where to find what's available to who, where it's all going to be, etc., etc. So if you have a question, definitely watch until the end of the video. I should be answering it at some point in there. But if you still have questions at the end of this, please don't hesitate to either send me an email or just comment below, and I'll get that clarity for you as soon as I can. So let's just dive in to the prep week work, and then I will trickle in the details, housekeeping stuff as we go. Because this prep video is not only public for you guys on YouTube, for those of you joining us for the free challenge, but it's also for my beautiful sanctuary peeps and 78 Deep course peeps so that we're all kind of on the same playing field. So you're going to hear me say things are available inside the course / the sanctuary, and that just means that it's an extra resource that's available for those of you who are watching who have decided to join that. But there are still, of course, there's still beautiful things to engage with if you're desiring to do this in the public free version, and I'm so happy you're here. So before we even get started, this printable here is available for our 78 Deep Course and Sanctuary members. I'm going to be going through this with you because there's worksheets in here that are walking us through the intention setting space. So if you're in there and you want to print this out and follow along, you can go ahead and do that. So as we tune into the scope of what this challenge is all about, right? We also want to think about how we can work with our earthly self, with our physical self, with our time-space constraints, right? To best support us as we work with our intention for deep exploration. And we're going to do this by choosing a voyage style. Let me put my stuff to the side here. So your voyage style is how you would like to engage with the challenge over the next 3 months or 13 weeks together. So the first voyage style is the cherry picker. So this is for my people who love a good challenge, love to get excited about it, but then fizzle out really quickly because doing the same thing every day just sounds soul crushing, right? So if you're doing this voyage style, your intention might be to get really excited, right? To get all set up and prepped, and then to set an intention, set a parameter for yourself that gives you preordained self permission to dip in and out as you see fit, right? So maybe you're really hyped up and you go steady for a couple of weeks, and then life happens and you either stop or you fall off a little bit. You then get to give yourself predetermined permission to just jump back in whenever you feel like it and end the 13 weeks with a sense of satisfaction for whatever you did decide to engage in, whatever was lighting you up at the time. So that's voyage style number one. Voyage style number two is the guided tour. So these are for my people who really love to move through things like classes where you want to just have all of the resources and dive in and get nitty gritty and explore everything there is and move through in a very organized way. Your voyage style will be the guided tour. So the guided tour would look something like following right along with everything I'm putting out, right? So setting aside time every day, each week to engage with the materials, getting yourself set up with prep, getting all your stuff together, and then just really committing to sinking deep into yourself and using whatever I provide as additional resources, right? Whether you're in the free version of the challenge where you're getting my elemental videos and you're engaging with my weekly posts on Instagram and really sinking into the community. We're going to talk about a hashtag in a moment. Really sinking into the community where you're sharing and looking at what other people are sharing and stuff like that, and you're really committed to doing it until the end and you're keeping your intention in line. If you're in the course, that would look like going ahead and following along with my daily posts with my extra resources, like the additional exercises where we can add different layers and textures to our exploration as the 13 weeks go on, past, just the general reflection questions, keeping it fresh and really just being along for the ride and letting yourself be guided by everything that's gonna come in. And then voyage style number 3 is the intuitive rebel, which is probably the voyage style I would pick. So this is the voyage style where you just really want to take whatever I put out there and run with it on your own. It's like a cherry picker with a pioneer lens. So a voyage style like this could look something like getting yourself oriented, soaking up all the intro material, getting your things together, and then just giving yourself permission to go wherever the wind blows, to dip in and out as you feel intuitively led. Maybe you don't do the daily reflections until you see maybe a card come up in your own draw that corresponds with whatever we're doing that day, and you're like, oh, I feel like exploring that today and doing that. Maybe you just, if you're in the 78 Deep course, maybe you just want to dive into the extra resources and see how you want to incorporate that into your practice and not really worry about the daily thing. Maybe you want to do a daily reflection, but you're just going to allow it to be whatever comes up from that card that day and you throw the questions out the window, right? This is the build your own voyage style, by using what I provide you as that kind of spark of the fire as the jumping off point. And the reason we're choosing this voyage style is because we really want to start the challenge with an idea of who we are, how we like to work, and what's going to be most sustainable for us. Because this is a longer term project, right? 13 weeks doesn't sound like a long time, but it is. It's almost an entire season or an entire quarter. So if you really want to engage with this, we want to give ourselves, set ourselves up for success by outlining what we feel this is going to look like for us and be most supportive for us within this to start out. So you'll want to pick your voyage style. You don't have to pick one of these three. You can design your own. Maybe you want to be an intuitive rebel who also cherry picks but also does the guided tour. Like whatever feels alive for you, take these three, think about it, mull it over, and choose your own or develop your own voyage style. So next we're going to set our intentions, and if you have the course guide, then you'll see kind of our little outline here of what to do during prep week. So we're going through that right now, but that's available to you if you're following along with the guide. So our grounded intention prompts. These are to supplement our voyage style. Again, to get really grounded on everything that's happening in the physical world of like, what do we need to set ourselves up for success? So I will put these prompts either below or in the email. But the prompts are just orienting us. So where am I on my journey right now? How do I feel this challenge will nourish me at this time, right? Because we want to have a reason for doing this. Is there any resistance, fear, or hesitation bubbling to the surface, right? Because when we're making a commitment, especially for me, there's always little protests and little things that come up. So where can we really sit with that and just honor how we're feeling and notice that? And then how can I hold myself in these emotions and move forward anyway, right? So how can we let those emotions come up, let all of the stuff that's coming up around the challenge, right? And our intention with the challenge to show itself, and then being like, hey, I see you. Thanks for being here. I'm going to hear you out, but we're also going to move forward anyway, and being really gentle with yourself about that. And then what do I want to remind myself of when the going gets tough? So when shit hits the fan and you've already missed a week, but you really revisit your intention and you're like, I want to continue on with this. I don't want to start over. I don't want to have to catch up. I just want to dive back in and get going. This is advice to you, right? So once we've taken time to ground ourselves and really all of that kind of earth intentions, we're going to move into our Hermit guide. So our guide for this challenge is the Hermit. And the Hermit is really the archetypal energy of the guide, which is kind of funny. So the Hermit is an archetype that invites us into the shadows, invites us into the dark. The Hermit asks us to not be antisocial, but to unplug, to shut out the voices and the noise of those around us so that we can really sit with ourselves and learn what it is about ourselves that is alive right now, commune with ourselves, see how we view the world, really digest things that we've taken in through our own lens to then turn it into wisdom as we move forward. And the Hermit is really beautiful because he's not afraid of the dark, right? He's actually taking his lantern and he's shining it into the depths. And he's like, hey, what's here? What do I see? What does that mean for me? And he stays curious. So as we move forward on the challenge, the Hermit is here to set us in the orientation and foundation of what this challenge is about, right? It's about shining that lantern into the depths. So there's an invitation to explore the Hermit card further if you desire to do that. If you're using a specific deck, which we'll talk about in a minute, maybe you want to explore the Hermit through that lens. But then we want to set intentions with the Hermit. So thinking about the challenge, thinking about the idea of the Hermit and everything we just talked about, how do you want to embody the Hermit as you move forward, right? This is really where we get to that heart of intention of like, why are we doing this? What is the thing that we are diving into the depths of? What is it that we're desiring to uncover for ourselves? What do we want to explore? What do we want to cultivate as we move through this? So I've written some examples of this, and again, this is in the course guide, but some examples would be, I just desire to develop my own language with the tarot. So if you're totally new to tarot and you're just joining us, welcome. I highly recommend my Tarot 101 course, which is also available inside the sanctuary, or stand alone as kind of a way to orient yourself as we move through the studying of each card. That's going to be really helpful for you. But that could be your desire, right? I just desire to develop my own internal understanding of the tarot and my own personal language with that and my style and how I like to do that. Or maybe your desire is just to see the deeper messages that the universe has for you each day via the tarot, right? What is the hidden wisdom that my guides, my ancestors, my allies, my source, universe, God, higher self, whatever it is that you want to connect with, right? For your higher intention. What do they have? What message do they have for me via this card today? Your desire could be to get to know yourself on a more intimate level. So this might be where you really start exploring, like, here is the Two of Pentacles. What is my relationship with balance? What is my relationship with different parts of my life? How do I embrace my complexities and work with that, right? Those are all good reflection questions for exploring yourself. Maybe your desire is to dive deeper into your shadows. So maybe you're actually just pulling a card each day. Like this is the Ace of Swords. Or not pulling a card, excuse me. Maybe you're just revisiting the card of the day, right? And asking, how does this play into the shadows in my life? So this is the Ace of Swords. So maybe you want to look at when do I ignore ideas? What about my shadows are alive or brought up because of each card? So there, again, those are just some examples of larger intentions that you want to use the Hermit as the aid to help you discover, but take some time to formulate and to set your own. There's no wrong way to do this as long as you're being intentional, right? As long as there's a focus, as long as there's a vision, as long as you know what it is that you'd like to get out of the journey and where you're heading, you're good to go, right? So we just want to take time to do that. And then with that is the invitation, of course, to pull one card. So asking the tarot, what is a message of support from the Hermit as I step into this intention? So what would be a message of support that the Hermit would have for me within this, and interpreting that through that lens. So moving on through the PDF, there's the study calendar. So this is a calendar where each day we have the outline of what card is on that day. But if you're just joining us for the free course, I will be emailing out this printable to you. And again, you can sign up for that email list at any time, where there's a graphic. It'll share with you the order that we're going in. So it goes this way: Knight of Pentacles, Six of Pentacles, Nine of Pentacles, down the first column, down the second column, down the third column. And I'll be announcing, when we enter into each element, because we're exploring the tarot through the elements, not just through the major and minor arcana and suits and all that, but really being intentional about what does the earth suit have for me? What do all of these cards have to do with my daily life, with the earth and plane, right? And looking at not only the minor arcana that's associated with that, but also the majors as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we kick off the earth element. So our official start date for prompts is actually on the 8th. So we start on the 8th, Friday, with the Knight of Pentacles. Each day, as you look at the cards, there's an invitation to answer these daily prompts. So what we're going to be looking at is the card each day. So we're just going to pretend again that today is the Two of Pentacles day. So we would take the card of the day and look at the traditional meaning of the card. So if you're new to tarot, you might want to go straight to the book to look this up. But if you're not new to tarot, I highly suggest just writing down whatever you remember about the card. It doesn't have to cover all of the meanings of the card, just whatever in your brain comes up as the meaning of the card. Then if you're delving into a specific guidebook or you're just looking at the specific imagery in the card, there's an invitation to jot down any kind of unique perspective that's added to that, right? So for me, I'd be like, oh, the Two of Pentacles is about balance, juggling work and life and really staying grounded in all aspects of ourselves and not leaning too heavily towards one or the other, but just spending time, balancing, keeping all of our balls in the air. But then, if we were looking at the unique perspective of the card, and I was using this card specifically, I would probably tune into these butterflies and I would think about how this kind of looks to me like the Two of Cups, but almost in like the self, right? You're looking at two halves of yourself. So this prompts me into thinking about the dualistic nature of yourself and honoring both sides of who you are and being balanced within that and not feeling like you have to be one way or another, but honoring all of your multifacets, which is not traditionally a meaning of this card, but this particular card from this particular deck brings that up, right? So that would be the unique perspective or insight. Then we have the wisdom of the Hermit. So in myself, what is alive for me in this moment when I look at this card? And we have our extra additional Hermit prompts if you want to take this in another direction based on your intention, right? So something that's really alive for me today as I'm filming this is thinking about my planning and journaling system and what I would like that to evolve into as we step into spring, and really thinking about the fact of like, I'm a creative person, I'm a mystical person, but I'm also a business owner and I have a lot of different multifacets like bumping around in my life. So I'm really focused on like, how can I honor all of these pieces of myself and keep all these pieces of myself alive within my system? How can I create that balance for myself? So I would look further into that, like, where have I not honored that balance before? And has that led to things not working very well? Or what is balanced about that system that I already have, right? That's something that's very specific to my life, to today, but I'm extracting the wisdom of that card as I'm looking inward, as I'm turning inward. And it doesn't always have to be heavy, like, oh, where am I unbalanced in my life today? Maybe that is what it's alive for you. So there's nothing wrong with that. But it doesn't have to be so serious, right? I can take this very just mundane, everyday project thing that I'm working on and use this as an insight into myself to think about that in a new way, right? Like, how am I orchestrating and honoring the internal parts of me as it reflects in my daily books that I use, right? So that's an example of our daily exploration. Again, we're not going to start the reflections until we kick off with the Knight of Pentacles on March 8th, or whenever you happen to be tuning into this challenge in the future. But I just want to get us all prepped, right? This is about being all prepped. So you might want to write this down or print this out, as well as these little graphics here. You might want to keep them someplace that just helps you be organized so that you're not lost every day when you sit down to do your thing. You can really easily be like, oh yeah, these are the prompts, da 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 da. And if you have the PDF and you want to print out sheets for yourself so that it's really easy for you each day to be like, this is the card we're on, this is the elemental suit that we're in, here's space for me to journal about each of those things, boom, done, dusted, super easy, then that is available in the PDF guide for you. So let's talk about journals and decks, right? That's the thing we're most probably excited about, right? The thing that we're really excited about prepping and getting into. So once we have our voyage style and our intention, right? Our earth practical aspects and our deeper reflective, etheric, emotional aspects, right? These things that we're exploring. The marriage of these two things, our voyage style and our intention within the exploration of the Hermit, is what is going to inform what decks or deck that we use and how we decide to document our experience. If you're doing the cherry picking style, you may just decide to journal in whatever journal that you're using at that moment, or your planner, or just jotting something down when it feels aligned. Maybe you use one deck, maybe you use whatever deck happens to be that day, right? It's just, you just kind of dabbling. So your deck that you choose or your journaling system may reflect that dabbling energy. If you're doing the guided tour voyage style, then you may choose one deck and one journal that you set up to work through, and you just keep going and going, and that is your thing, right? You have your intention, you have a journal that reflects that, you have a deck that reflects an intention, and you're just going hard and exploring and allowing the structure of a single deck or a single journal to really hold you within that exploration, if you're choosing like a guided tourist type voyage. If you're an intuitive rebel, the sky's your limit, right? And this is the style that I kind of fall under. So at this point, I'm going to share with you what I'm using, which I know you're all dying to know because you keep asking me what I'm using, what my challenge is going to look like, and how that all comes together, right? How I'm going to document it, all that fun stuff. So I'd love for you to take this as an example, but please know that you're free to do whatever you feel like doing. There are no rules in terms of what deck you need to use, how many decks you need to use, how frequently you need to do the challenge, how you need to document it, etc., right? Your only quote unquote rule for this challenge is to set an intention and to use the daily card prompts and the reflection questions to explore that intention that has to do with your voyage into the depths of you. Those are the only really quote unquote rules of the challenge. Okay. So anything outside of that, you automatically have permission. Signed, written, maybe a little blood on there, whatever. It's there for you. Permission granted. Okay. So let's talk about my style. For this particular challenge, my voyage style is going to be somewhere between intuitive rebel and guided tour. Now, I have to do the guided tour because I am guiding you, right? I am guiding this challenge. I'm the one making it. So I do need a sense of structure for myself. So part of that structure is me sharing things with you, right? So if you're in the free version of the challenge, this is going to look like a elemental video where we discuss the prompts for that particular element. We talk about the element itself, the overall vibe of the cards as they go in that element, etc., etc. You'll also see from me a weekly post where I'm posting my favorite reflection of the week for whatever card that may be. That'll be kind of our structure, right? If you're in the 78 deep course or sanctuary, the structure I'm providing you with is has a lot more depth to it. I'm going to be sharing with you my daily reflections in the daily post section, where I'm going to share with you whatever I feel called to that day. So whatever my actual authentic card exploration process looks like is what I'm going to be sharing with you. So that could be musing on my digested meaning of the card. That could be whatever shadow work thing that came up, right? How I talked about that last Hermit question with you today. It might be something like that. It may be questions or really good journal prompts or a tarot spread that I've created that really inspired me out of that card, right? So there's going to be a wide variety of things, and I'm going to just authentically share whatever happens for me that day within there. So that will be there for you to either dip into daily or whenever you feel like it, according to your voyage style. Within that structure, within the course and the sanctuary as well, I'm also going to be sharing extra resources as we go on, right? So as we go on, I want to keep the challenge fresh for you. I'm going to be popping in with different reflection questions that you can add on. Maybe we explore additional guides. as your kind of challenge shifts and evolves. We're going to talk about repeated cards and working with the message within that when we're not understanding that message. Those are just a few examples, right? But that's the structure that I'm creating within there. So that's part of my intention. That will not be part of your voyage style, because you're just going to be choosing how you engage with that. But for me, that's a big part of my intention with this challenge, right? Because I'm the facilitator. So my second voyage style, right, aspect after the guided tour is the intuitive rebel. And as the intuitive rebel, right, I am someone who just follows the beat of her own drum every day of her life. Like, that is how I live. And I've tried to fight it in the past and it never works out well. So I've just learned to embrace it and roll with it. So the way that I do this is every day I just wake up and decide what feels exciting for me that day. So to honor that aspect of myself, I will be choosing to explore the card via whatever deck I choose that day, and that'll be that, right? Whatever deck is lighting me up that day, whatever deck I happen to have out on my desk, whatever I'm moving with, that will be the deck or guidebook. Maybe I don't use a deck guidebook. Maybe I want to use a guidebook like this one. So this is one of my favorite tarot books. This is The Magic of Tarot by Sasha Graham. So maybe we come up, to one day that's the Eight of Wands. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm feeling like looking up the Eight of Wands in this for my extra insight, right? My card prompt number 2. So maybe I'll use that. I'm very much where the wind blows, where my intuition takes me. That is how I live my life. So I'm adjusting the challenge to honor that. That being said, I will probably be kicking off the challenge with this deck because this is actually the deck that's kind of out right now. She's like my deck that I'm really working with. And this is also the deck that helped me and my beautiful friend Anna really get into the setup of the challenge. So all of the challenge, what do we even call this? They're not really prompts, right? These are the prompts. What do you call the card order? I guess that's what you call it. So the card order was done using this deck. So there's something about the challenge that's really imbued in this deck. So I have a feeling Santa Muerta Tarot, which is what this is, will pop up for me quite a bit within the challenge. But again, I'm not married to it, right? I'm just allowing whatever my inner self needs me to know that day is going to guide me to the right deck, to the right book that has that message that I need. Period. The end. That's how I live my life. So that's how that's going to be moving. So that's my voyage style, but what's my intention, right? So if I'm talking about the Hermit, what is my intention with the Hermit, right? We know that I'm going to flit around like a butterfly, like that Two of Pentacles card, and go where the wind takes me. But what's my intention that grounds me? So my Hermit intention for this challenge is to really sink into what my tarot understanding has evolved into since I began my journey. So at this point, I'm very, I'm really deep in my tarot journey. I'm a professional reader. I have a wide variety of knowledge. I've studied a lot of decks, right? I still have a ton to learn. There's always something new to learn. But I do have a certain level now where I'm able to teach, right? To share things with you. So my intention for this challenge is to really go deep into myself and excavate that actual like hermit wisdom, right? When I shut out everything else, what is it that this card really means for me? And actually taking time to document that and write that down or speak about it in a voice note within my daily posts or whatever that's going to look like for me, right? Just really exploring the breadth of knowledge that I have accumulated about the card and take the time to digest it into a nugget of wisdom that comes from me first before I look at any of the additional resources, right? I still want to dive into the unique perspective, again, like I did looking at the card, how is this different from my already preconceived notion of what this card means? Because that's how we evolve our understanding of things, is by continuing to learn and to grow and to digest new perspectives. So I'm always excited about learning something new, whether that be whatever's standing out in the guidebook or the card, etc., etc. But my focus is going to be about my understanding and my digestion, my hermit wisdom that comes from that. And really exploring when I feel called to whatever the shadow around being the hermit themselves, being the guide, what shadow does each card, as I feel called to, bring up for me around that topic? So that's my hermit intention. And that hermit intention is one of the things that really prompted the start of this challenge. Was because I was looking at this tarot handbook that I started. And I'm going to be sharing in depth my tarot journaling practice. That video is actually already up in the sanctuary, in the 78 deep area. If you're in there, you can go watch that video where I'm going to talk about this more in depth. But basically, I started this journal several years ago, and my intention with this was to basically create my own guidebook, right? To have this digested information and collecting a bunch of meanings that really resonated with me and my understanding of the card, and putting it all in my own personal guidebook that I could go back to as my language with the tarot evolved. And as you can see, I have done some things with it, but I haven't done a ton with it. And I still have lots of blank spots. So I wanted to dive back into this and be more intentional and really begin to fill this out more. So as and when, hopefully more often than not, I feel called to during this challenge, aside from sharing with you every day, I really want to dive into this project, right? And explore my understanding of the card, which you'll see here, right? I have associations. So these are like astrological things that are associated with the card, any stories or legends that are associated with the card, keywords that I like to collect, right? There's a million keywords for each friggin' card. And if we collect too many, all the cards start to sound the same. But that's a topic for another video. And then there's meanings that have stood out to me over the years. And then I digested, Death card's one of my favorites. I've digested, some of my wisdom from the Death card and wrote some of that here in my own reflection. So this is really kind of the pulse of this challenge for me, is working on this journal project. But I know that I won't always have the time or the bandwidth to do this. So when I don't, I'm just going to pop into either my planner or my personal journal here that I do some other tarot journaling in, which again, I will go into in that video for my sanctuary people, and just journal about whatever, internal work I'm doing with the card that day. So that is our prep week, my loves. Our prep week for the 78 Deep Challenge kicking off. We are going to look at choosing your voyage style. You're going to set your intentions. You're going to meet the hermit and really sit with that. Pull a card as your message from the hermit. And then with all of that knowledge, decide how you want to document it and what deck or decks you would like to use as you move forward, whether you want to choose one thing, whether you want to choose the chaos intuitive approach like I have, whatever, or anything in between, right? Whatever is tickling your fancy. Get yourself oriented, get your intentions set, get yourself set up, and then we will kick off with our first card reflection and the earth element video on March 8th. Okay, my loves. I'm going to take a sip of coffee, but I think that's it. I'm so excited to dive into this with you. Thank you so much for being excited about this and for being willing to join in on this challenge. It's not as fun if I'm doing it by myself, of course, so it's lovely to have you here. If you're one of my course or sanctuary babes, please feel free to pop into our Voxer community chat area and share what decks you're using, what your Hermit intention is, all of those fun things. We'd love to see and celebrate with you and get excited about that. You can also ask questions in there as well. If you're going to just be joining us on the free challenge and you have a social media that you'd love to post on, please use the hashtag 78deep on Instagram or make a video, right? If you have a YouTube channel and you want to make a YouTube video, I would love to see it. I'd love to hear you talk about your intentions and share what you're going to be using and all of that beautiful stuff. So you can tag me in that at Leanne Aligned on YouTube or on Instagram. Use the hashtag 78deep on YouTube or on Instagram. And let's connect and let's go on a voyage together. All right, my loves. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go now. I hope you have a beautiful prep week, and I'll see you on March 8th. Take care, guys. Bye.